Good evening, participants. Okay, good evening, Partha.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Okay, so good evening, all the participants. Let's start the class today, and the topic is marriage. Yes. Now, when I talk about marriage, let's before talking about marriage, let's talk about the general things first. Now, when I talk about human history, yes. So, human history is basically the history of evolution of institutions, and that make us different from what other animals and other species. Because we are actually started with animal instincts, but we have got the capability to create what powerful institutions for us. So human beings throughout the human history have created institutions. There was an evolution of institutions, and finally, with the changing of time, there were changes in those institutions that we call as reforms. And institutions can be of various types: political institutions, economic institutions, and social institutions. So among the social institutions, one of the most prominent institution that developed across the world is marriage as an institution. Now, marriage as an institution, so we are going to understand its evolution, how ultimately it had got patriarchal character, how it is now being challenged by various changes in the society and the world, and what are the new colors that the institution is getting shaped into with the changing period of time. So that means we are going to understand the entire dynamics of marriage as an institution. So in this regard, I'm going to share something on the board now. So let's start the class. Okay, so evolution. Yes. So evolution means how the marriage as an institution evolved. Good evening, Joshika.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Okay, so I was talking about that human beings' history is that of evolution of various institutions for their own benefit, because only human beings have the capability to create such institutions, not the other species on this planet Earth. Yes. Now, one of that prominent institutions that was created in the social dimension is marriage as an institution, prevalent across the world. Yes. Now, so let's talk about social needs always give rise to institutions, and with the passage of time, emergence of new thinking and new social needs emerge, which then bring changes in the existing institutions. So institutions always evolve, institutions always change, and a term that we use for changes incorporation is called reforms. Okay, so reforms. So changes here means reforms. So reforms are always needed. Now we always know that we have done an essay topic that culture and civilization. So civilization always evolves, and when civilization evolves, thinking evolves. Definitely, there are changes in culture also. That means, again, it is linked with what? Civilizational changes. It is linked with civilization changes. And civilization changes always impact cultural changes. Always impact cultural changes. So civilization changes always impact cultural changes. Now, when you talk about pre-industrial era, so most of things are very, very static. Now, industrial era brought various changes. Then you talk about the colonial period brought changes. Post-independence period brought more changes. So what we are saying is, in the last 300, 400 years, the changes have been happening very, very fast. And we are living now in 21st century. So it's a century of what? Faster changes. So hence, that's why all the things which were seen as static are now forced to become dynamic to include changes, including marriage as an institution. Now, for example, so our evolution, so we are just one of the species among millions of species on this planet Earth. And we also, as a now we call also human being or Homo sapiens, but we also have what? Animal instincts. Okay. Now that animal instincts, which were there more in the past, gradually subsided with the coming of the institution control. Hence, let us see the evolution first from the just being the lot of people having animal instincts toward coming of the institutions and shaping of the marriage as an institution first. So yes, we evolved over a period of time. Yes, from the four-legged, two-legged, that is Homo erectus, and then Homo sapiens. But what we carried? We carried what? Animal instincts. We carried animal instincts with us. Now, what are those animal instincts that are usually found among animal? That is called instant gratification. So, instant gratification is animal instinct. That means at any cost, just satisfy our immediate needs. So, what are animal instincts? Satisfy immediate needs. Satisfy immediate needs. So, Homo sapiens also displayed the same thing. Once before the coming of a settled civilization, so that same type of thing was also there among the human beings also. So what was the instant gratification required by the so-called evolution of human beings? So what they were requiring, instant gratification means first is survival. The first basic need is survival at any cost. So that brings out the animal instinct. That means survival means defensive and aggressive. So survival against wild animals, and also competing groups of people. Yes, against competing groups of people. So first animal instinct is a survival instinct. We all know animal kingdom. So all the animals try to survive in a hostile environment. Okay, so survival instinct. Second instinct is hunter, gatherer, and wanderer.
Sir, can't hear you, sir.
Sir, you are not audible.
Now it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now survival is the first basic instinct of any animal. So had been with the human beings also. Now, when we talk about hunter, gatherer, and wanderer, so animals keep on relocating themselves to find safety. Same was the case with the earlier humans. Okay, hunters and gatherers, they were gathering what the natural products given by the trees, that is fruits and berries, for their own benefit, and also killing ferocious animals. That means the aggressive nature was more. Same was the case with reproduction also. So when we see the animal kingdom, there's a fighting for among the males to get the mates. Yes. Okay. So fighting among the males to get the mates. Same was the condition of the early humans also. So these were actually animal instincts. So whenever you talk about something about animal instincts, just write for instant gratification, satisfying the immediate needs is a sign of an animal instinct based on survival. Okay. And then reproduction, bringing aggression, violence. These are all animal instincts. Now, when these were based on force, then when we talk about physiology of men and women, so definitely, naturally, the men have got more force and power physically. Women are more powerful biologically. Yes. So that means in an era of fighting the circumstances which were hostile, definitely it gave an advantage to men over women. Okay, advantage to men over women. So all the above also gave rise to prominence of men in defense, attack, for survival, as by nature, men are physically more powerful. So hence it gave an advantage to men. Women are biologically more strong. Women are biologically more strong. I will talk about biologically more strong a little later in the class. So naturally, as the hostile environment has to be fought, new settlements have to be found. Okay, new stone tools have to be created. Forests have to be cleared, that require more physical power. And hence that physical power requirement gave men the supremacy over women. And this was the start of what initial form of patriarchy, when the men tried to gain the superior position in comparison to women. That was basically of the natural requirement. Yes. That was not planned initially. Patriarchy was not planned initially. But the circumstances gave rise to what? Men taking over women. Now further. Now later what happened? Gradually, the Homo sapiens emerged as social animal. That means they moved towards settlements now. So from the wanderers and gatherers stage, now the Homo sapiens now gradually became the social animal means settlements. Aristotle, man is by nature a social animal. Now, when the settlements were starting, initial settlements, so what is actually required? A certain degree of social order is required in the settlements to prevent what? What fights within the people in the same community. So hence, what was the start? Gradual emergence of community living. And when we read history, when we read anthropology, so there comes a term called, an era called Mesolithic era. That is Middle Stone Age. That is a period of 10,000 BCE to 6,000 BCE. This is the start of a rudimentary society, the first form of settlements, where they were living in caves. So the Mesolithic people lived in what? Semi-permanent settlements along with occupying caves and open grounds. So hence what is now required is, now the requirement is social order. Now the requirement is create an order for community living. So social order is now required for community living. Now this community living definitely with respect to what? Sharing. So sharing of food, okay, interdining, and maybe establishing certain degree of what? Finding a stable mate. Yes. Not just fighting for the mate. Yes. Not just fighting for the mate. Finding a stable mate. So settlements required human beings to create a certain degree of social order to prevent clashes within the same settlements. Prevent clashes. Now, further. Now, so hence it's clearly now shown here with bullet points, requirement, need of a social order, which gave rise to religious practices, that is believe in the supernatural power or the God. Yes. So that means fearing the God to ultimately maintain this social order, not to go against the social order because somebody is watching and will give punishment. Yes. That means the concept of God also emerged. This also gave rise, settlements also gave rise to division of labor. And this also on the basis of gender, men and women. So hence the initial settlements tried to establish a social order on the basis of fear of nature, on the basis of fear of something supernatural, on the basis of something which is called God as a concept, so as to create certain degree of what? Acceptance or what abidance with a certain degree of social order being created at that time. Division of labor also happened. Further, to curb animal instincts and to prevent fight for partners would have given rise to initial system of stable partners. Initial system of stable partners. So this was the start of the initial requirement of a social order. Now, it improved further with the coming of a Neolithic age. So Neolithic age, 6,000 BCE to 1,000 BCE. So which also coincided with a time period of the, in India with Indian subcontinents with what? IVC also, with also coming of what? The Aryans in India, Rigvedic Aryans. The people of Neolithic age led a more settled life and paved the way for the actual beginning of civilization. Actual beginning of civilization. That means more and more rules and regulations in the society would have now been emerging. Now this was when you talk about 1000 BC, it was a Rigvedic period. Now then came the later Vedic. And then around 600 BCE was the emergence of kingdoms. 600 BCE emergence of kingdoms that we call Mahajanpadas. Mahajanpadas. So what was taking shape? Not only the social order, but also the political order and the economic order. So three orders were now taking shape. So political order, economic order, and social order. So definitely to manage the communities, there would have been requirement of an administration. Above the administration, there would be a requirement of somebody called a king. Okay. Now to ultimately run the system of administration, there's a requirement of a revenue. So that gave rise to what? Economic means. Okay. Taxation system. So three orders now emerged: political order, economic order, and social order. So what we found? Emergence of kings, landlords and feudal system, settled agriculture, farmers, trade. But here in all these institutions, there was a dominance of men now. Now the patriarchy was getting shaped more, okay, shaped more. Initially, on the basis of physical power, on the basis of more force the men can apply, the men was naturally getting the advantage over women. But now, as the initial advantage was there with the men, then men became the decider for various things in terms of evolution of the orders. So as all these orders, political, economic, or social, were now dominated by men. So kings, now for example, even when we see this also requires more degree of force to rule over someone, also require degree of a force. So hence, again, advantage to men.
Sir, there
Yes.
is disturbance in your voice, sir.
Disturbance in voice. Partha, is there?
Not at my end, sir.
Okay, Diksha, just check your side. Others also, is there an issue?
No, sir, you're audible.
Okay, thank you. So Diksha, just check your side. So that means when we're talking about emergence of the orders, the men had the advantage and they dominated all the orders now. So emergence of kings, even to rule, there was a requirement of force. Okay, hence it gave advantage to men here. Similarly, to as a landlords, to extract the revenue, to ultimately maintain the law and order, they were given the responsibility of what law and order, policing, even what military type of administration. Again, it gave advantage to men because they were in more position to use force. Settled agriculture, clearing of the forest, new settlements, farming is also a very what force or what energy sapping activity, again would have given advantage to men here. In terms of trade, traveling long distances, it also requires certain powerful groups of people to move to defend themselves from the what various type of dacoits or robbers on the roads. So again, all these activities gradually were taken forward by mostly men. So men had got the advantage. Now, as the patriarchy was getting shaped, now this created certain degree of classes. So kings, a different class altogether. Landlords, different class altogether. Farmers, different class altogether. Traders, different class altogether. Now, that means now a next question emerged: how to transfer this to next generation? And who will be the legitimate heir, or who will be the legitimate person to handle the things in the next generation? So again, that brought focus again on the concept of marriage. That means a marriage between a man and a woman leading to the offspring, which is now considered socially accepted through a marriage. That socially accepted offspring will be the person inheriting the transfer of power and property. Yes. So now, next requirement was transfer of power and property. So that also the craftsmen or the skills-based activities. So hence emerged the concept of property and possession. There was already now a stratification of society in classes, and also in Indian condition, also in various castes. So society was divided, okay, and economy. So that means classes were there. And now, as and when the material culture took shape, now next target was how to transfer that to next generation. So that requires certain degree of socially accepted legitimacy at that time. Hence, marriage was seen as an institution to provide that legitimacy. That means a union between men and women giving rise to an offspring, which is socially accepted, will be the natural or the inheritor of the transfer of power and the property. So that means the second requirement was this. So transfer of property and inheritance and maintain social and economic divisions in society. So next major requirement which gave prominence to marriage as an institution was property, inheritance, and maintaining the social and economic divisions in society. That's why marriage was allowed only to in a certain strata of people only. It was not anywhere. Yes. So there was intercaste marriages were not allowed. Yes. Interfaith, interclass marriages were not allowed. So requirement of time was the property, inheritance, maintaining social and economic divisions in society. Now, how to maintain the above? Now, for maintaining the above, marriage as an institution emerged and which became dominant to give rise to the concept of stable families, transfer of property, inheritance, and also to maintain social and economic stratification. So that means the solution was provided by a marriage system. But as this marriage system evolved, but in what type of order? Where the men were already dominant. So this marriage system was evolving when the men in different orders, political, economic, and social orders were already dominant. That's why the marriage system had traces of patriarchy or the control of patriarchy. Traces of patriarchy and control of patriarchy. So, another thing or which was concerning for the men, which was beyond this, was something else. Let's see. Institution of marriage, patriarchy orientation. Now, first of all, marriage became a way of channelizing sexuality in a socially accepted way. So, sexuality of both men and women. So, marriage became an institution to channelize it in a socially acceptable manner. The first. And definitely retention of family property to offspring. That's why this became important. And now, the third concern was a concern for men, because men were afraid of what? Women's sexuality. Now, let's talk about the biological superiority of women in comparison to men. Now, when we talk about the sexuality of men and women, there's a difference now. Women can have what? At one time, multiple organisms, but the men cannot. Men can have maximum one. Okay. So that type of what? Women biological what? Power over men also created what? Problem for the men of suspicion that how to control the women's sexuality. That's why they require a system in which the marriage between one man and one woman, the man should be having the power over the women, and hence monogamy was required. Yes. So monogamy was required. So that's why polyandry did not develop, but polygamy developed. Yes. Polyandry, we'll talk about polyandry and polygamy also later. Why? Because if the women have got multiple what partners, can give rise to offspring, and then it's very difficult to ascertain for a male dominated society who is the father of the child. And when we are talking about the transfer of property in a so-called legitimate manner accepted by the society, it required the proof that this person is the father of this child. And in an era where the science was not there, when the DNA testing was not there, so hence there's the requirement of a thing called monogamous marriage. So another feature was men were afraid of women's sexuality, hence the focus was on what? Monogamous marriage, in which men had domination. And note down another reason was, note down below this, another reason was, okay, as biologically women can have many partners, can bear offsprings, but in a society concerned with legitimate transfer of inheritance, comma, social and economic status,
Sir, legitimate.
transfer of inheritance, comma, social and economic status, required offsprings where paternity can be proved, Hence, a monogamous marriage system in which male had domination or males had domination.
Sir, a monogamous marriage.
Monogamous marriage system in which males had domination emerged as an institution. Emerged as an institution. Emerged as an institution. Okay, now, further, when we see this, why there came a concept of vansh and varis. Okay. इस वंश का वारिस कौन है? वंश, कौन से वंश? Lineage, and varis who will be an inheritor. Now, as the vansh and varis were actually emerging from a monogamous marriage system in which male had domination and male were occupying all the orders, political, economic, and social. Hence, naturally, there was a preference for sons who will be the major inheritor. So, hence, transfer of property to sons emerged. Transfer of skills and crafts to sons emerged. So, traders to the son, skillsmen to the son, craftsmen to the son, king to the son. Okay. So that means the same type of, means the inheritance was transferred to the son. And girls were offered in marriage. So hence the system emerged where the boys were retained in the household and the girls were offered in marriage. So girls were offered in marriage. So what happened? The sons were retained. Sons were retained in household. And the daughters, when we talk about daughters, were offered in marriage. Offered in marriages. That's why to make this an impact always on the girls and the women, that you are temporary in the household of birth, your actual house is the house of the husband and in-laws. That was fueled, that was framed, that was imparted, that was filtered in the young girl's mind right from the growing up years. Okay, that you are made for somebody else. Hence, cultivated aspiration for the women was to find a match in future, give birth to children, remain indoors, take care of the family, and remain committed to husband. That was fueled in the minds of the women right from the start, or the girls from the start. That's why day before yesterday, maybe yesterday we talked about thing, day before yesterday we talked about thing called toxic femininity. Yes. So toxic femininity means which is fed right from the childhood that you have to be subservient to the male domination. Okay. So this cultivated aspiration for the women was to find a match, give birth to children, be indoors, take care of the family, committed to husband. Hence, if the women were not abiding with this norm, if the women were not abiding with norm, then they were hashtagged with what very derogatory names. So women were hashtagged if they were unmarried, not able to bear children, not able to bear a boy, or in love affair and in extramarital relations. So hence the women were hashtagged with derogatory names so that they stick to the social norms created by the male patriarchy. They stick to the social norms. Hence, what we are seeing is emergence of a marriage system in which men are at the top, yes, and the women are subservient, yes. Now, this marriage system did not have space even for the third gender and transgenders. So even this marriage system did not have space for third gender, transgender, because if men marry third gender or transgenders, there will not be any offspring. And even if there's same-sex marriage, there will not be any offspring. So offsprings are required for a transfer of property, also for labor. Yes, also for labor. So that's why the children were required for various work, the labor work which are required everywhere, the transfer of property, and a legitimate child is required. So hence, a marriage system, men domination, women subservient, a marriage system which were not allowing the transgenders to marry a normal man, or maybe when you talk about the same-sex marriage were not allowed because the result was not offsprings. Now, so what was the sanction? only heterosexual marriage between men and women and forced to keep them monogamous by making marriages sacred that came into picture. So this was now considered sacrosanct. Sacrosanct, that means which should be abided, which should not be broken, or which should not be challenged. Sacrosanct. So this was the emergence, and that happened throughout the world. But as we are talking about India, so we are a part of the world. So similar thing were happening here also. And we have got different features also, the caste system also involved. Now, only heterosexual marriage between men and women was considered sacrosanct. But in this sacrosanct marriage, though it was monogamous, there were certain leverage or benefits for the men. For example, the rich, powerful men, that can be big traders, that can be big landlords, or the kings, they were polygamous. They were polygamous. So polygamy prevalent for the rich men, and even they were keeping concubines. That means they were keeping women without marrying for their pleasure. Yes. So here polygamy prevailed over the richer men. Though the marriage system was sacrosanct, considered monogamous, but here the leverage was taken by the rich men who can be kings, who can be landlords, who can be big traders or businessmen. Now, so what was average man doing who was not rich? So average men, for sexual gratification outside marriage, now they were involved in using the services of a prostitute. Yes. So prostitution. So prostitution was again fueled by the male patriarchy. Now, and the chance of marriage was also there. If in the monogamous marriage, if the woman is not able to bear children or not able to bear a male child, or the wife dies, so there was always a chance that the man will be getting a second wife. Yes. So that means in terms of the marriage, though it was sacrosanct between men and women, though still the advantage was shifted towards men, because richer men can be polygamous. Okay, average man can also get the services from the prostitute. Yes, sir, for his sexual gratification outside the marriage. And in case of what three conditions, women, wife not having a child, not having a male child, or in case she dies, then there always a possibility of what second marriage for the man. So what we are seeing is a patriarchal tilt towards marriage system. But there were boundaries for women. Yes, foundations for women. In the marriage, there were foundations for women. For example, polyandry was not accepted. So there would have been certain polyandrous tribes, yes, but those are only minuscule in number. But when we talk about mainstream civilization, the polyandry was not accepted. Again, the same issue. So in terms of polyandry, a lady having maybe 2 or 3 husbands. So that means it's difficult to ascertain whose offspring is belonging to which husband. Yes. So again, the issue sharing of the property, transfer of the property. That's why polyandry was not encouraged. So women were not having the chance for polyandry. Now widows. Now to prevent widow remarriage, what was done? So again, widows were hashtagged that they are ominous. So they throw bad omens on the young girls. Okay, so they should be kept away. They should not be dressing, or they should not be beautifying themselves. Many times there were cases of they were also their heads were also tonsured, means the hair were cut to make them unattractive. So they were almost hashtagged and ostracized from the society, kept away. Now, to escape such type of harsh living conditions, many times the women were forced to opt for sati. So sati becomes a way of suicide, and where the women committing sati was actually praised by the society as a devi. Against a way of false impression that if you do sati, we will be designating you a devi after your death. Yes. Or there were also concept of levirate. So what is levirate? Anybody?
Practice in Jews, sir. They marry in the same family, like brother.
Yes. Levirate is maybe marrying the widow with the brother of the deceased husband. Yes. So that is called levirate. So that the property remains within the family itself. Okay. So marriage with the brother of deceased husbands. So for widows, they were majorly the women were actually what kept aloof or kept separated from the mainstream society, and they were made unattractive deliberately so that they are not producing offspring in case of love relation happening with any men. Yes, because then it would be difficult to what assign a tag for that child. So hence they were actually what kept away or forced to opt for sati or forced to go for levirate. Yes, so these were three conditions for women. So divorce was not a possibility, but a man can abandon his wife. Yes, it's not for the wife. So when you are talking about a marriage system in which men have all the power and also have got all the what open options for himself, not for women. Further, marriage was also required to sustain social and economic divisions in society. So social economic divisions. So for example, there's a concept of called Kulinism. So this concept also comes in what history, Kulinism. That means women belonging to a certain class, certain economic class, will be marrying only with the men of the same economic class. Okay, that means women belonging to a certain higher class will only be marrying a man of the same high class. Now, for example, if this woman is of upper caste and belonging to a rich family, cannot marry a man of the same caste if that man is coming from a lower economic profile. Lower economic profile. So cannot marry a man of the same caste. So that is called maintaining class status. Maintaining a class status. That is called Kulinism. So a higher class woman will only be marrying a man of the same higher class. Now, usually the higher classes were mostly upper caste. So this women belonging to upper caste family and rich were still not allowed to marry the man of the same caste if the economic profile is dissimilar. It's not similar. So the classism, that is called Kulinism. And generally, there was strict no to intercaste marriages to keep separate the social and divisions. Strict no to interreligion marriages. And Pratiloma marriages were not allowed, means a lower caste man definitely cannot marry an upper caste woman. Pratiloma marriages were not allowed. There would have been rare cases. So what means the punishment was done, if the child was born in terms of what against the norm marriages, those children were consigned to the category of untouchables. That was the punishment. So here, in case of what going against the norm, then the punishment for such couples as a deterrence for others. So the punishment for such couples as a deterrence for others, the offspring born were given the status of untouchable. Given the status of untouchable. Given the status of untouchable. So that means what we have seen, first of all, evolution of marriage was a result of a requirement of a social order, so that everyone will be able to find their mates. Okay, they should not be fighting for a mates like animals do. Okay, that makes human being different. Institutions were evolving, political, economic, and social, but here men have got initial advantage because of the force and power they can apply. Hence, they were getting initial advantage over women. Hence, they were also occupying the positional power in the orders also. Hence, that type of positional powers created class divisions, caste divisions in society. That is also required to be maintained. Transfer of property and inheritance now becoming an issue. Hence, marriage system was seen as a way of legitimately doing this and maintaining the social and economic divisions in the society. But what type of marriage system emerged? Monogamous, in which men had more power. But monogamous does not mean that men remain monogamous. Men had got the advantage to pursue their what preferences outside the marriages also. But there was huge foundation on the women. Now, in this marriage system, there's no scope for what third gender, transgender, or same-sex marriages because they did not produce offspring. Yes. And these were the major things which were considered in terms of marriages: no intercaste marriages, no interreligion marriages, colonism was maintained. And in case of what going against the norms, so punishment was there, offspring were considered untouchables. Till now, very clear? Now, further.
So, is it just the offsprings that would have the consequences of being
See,
classified as untouchables?
see, offsprings were actually the children. They were maybe the parents were actually giving punishments of what maybe punishment of death also. Yes, in that scenario, it depends upon the kings. It depends upon the people who were powerful in the society. It depends upon them. So, but see, offsprings were given, were always kept. They were kept alive. They were always so that they will be shown as example for rest of the people. Hmm? So that's why the offsprings were treated as a separate caste altogether or untouchables altogether. Yes. So that was the major reason.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay. Now, further. So hence patriarchy made it sacrosanct, which cannot be challenged or changed. Yes, that was the phase almost till the coming of the Britishers. Okay, almost with the coming of the Britishers, the marriage as an institution was sacrosanct as created by the human history in India for almost 3,000-4,000 years. It remained sacrosanct. But the challenges emerged with the coming of new thoughts, new learning. For example, emergence of first category of change, 19th century. Because exposure to colonialism, okay, Western thoughts, and the emergence of what social reformers as a result of Western thoughts. The first sort of change emerged from 19th century onward. Because exposure to what foreign thoughts, we were now learning English. Okay, there were also various educated people emerging from India who were studying in England. They were bringing their own thinking. Now they were getting exposed to liberal ideas of the West. Especially, we know the major revolution was French Revolution, which brought the feeling of equality, liberty. Yes. So all those were also seeping up in what the intellectuals in India, and they were becoming the drivers of change in the society. So influence of Western ideas and shift of focus towards women. For example, now Raja Ram Mohan Roy type of people tried to focus on the problems faced by the women. Hence, worked enormously for the abolition of sati and finally got it abolished officially by an act, yes, by Lord William Bentinck. So Raja Ram Mohan Roy, so now led to abolition of sati. Now, abolition of sati would be meaning what? It would be meaning that number of widows will be rising in society. So this would have been requiring widow remarriage now. That's why now the next step, major step was by Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar, widow remarriage. So now, so abolition of sati would have now required the next step. Hence came into person Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar. Hence came into concept of what widow remarriage. So that means this was the first major change in the marriage system. So first breaking of the sacrosanct status of the marriage system was coming of the widow remarriage. So this was the first major change. So note down, this is the first major change which break the marriage system considered sacrosanct. So once a wife, you will remain the wife of the same person, whether that person is alive or deceased. So that was broken now. So widow remarriage broke that first. Now further. Now with the coming of what? Education for women. So you must have heard about Bethune College, yes, which was the first college for women in entire Asia by John Eliot Drinkwater Bethune. That came in 1850, 1849, 1850. Efforts brought by education for the girls for coming from the depressed sections by Jyotirao Phule, Savitri, and so there were various reformers involved. Now education. Now, if we have to provide education to girls, so what we have to stop? We have to stop child marriages. Okay. So now the first step was abolition of sati. Abolition of sati would have led to the increase in number of widows. So first major change was the widow remarriage. Now with the focus on the girls and women education, what to be prevented next is child marriage. Very clear? You are finding the link? Child marriage. Now hence, increasing the age of marriage was the next step. So that's why came Age of Consent Act 1891. Age of consent Act 1891. So raised the age of consent for girls from 10 to 12 years. So minimum age of girls now fixed was 12 years. Applicable across all communities and religions in British India. That means, so this challenged, yes, this challenged the concept or the culture of child marriages. Gradually starting challenging the child marriages. Now further, another increase in the age of marriage was through Shalda Act of 1929. Child Marriage Restraint Act. The name itself was Child Marriage Restraint Act, 1929. Now, so the minimum age for girls 14 years and for boys 18 years. And hence it introduced proper penalties for the parents, guardians, priests involved in child marriages. So what we are seeing again, the reforms have now started in the marriage system with the focus now on what preventing child marriages and encouraging education for girls. So this would definitely have encouraged education for girls. Encouraged education for girls. Now, when somebody is getting educated now, so what will happen? She, okay, we are talking about girls, so she will be getting exposed to what new thinking now. She will be focusing now on what more higher education. She will now be in the position gradually to what put her opinion, can also counter argument with the parents to study more, can also try to become self-capable by starting earning. So that means gradually what was happening is with the prevention of child marriages, education was increasing for girls. Education would have opened the mindsets of the girls more. Now want to make their own life and career and decision in terms of finding the life partners also. That means gradually what we are seeing is small changes were now emerging in the concept of marriage. Small changes. So encourage education for girls. Note down a line for this, a line below this you can add on. Education for girls, and the education would have opened up. Education would have opened up new wave of thinking. New wave of thinking, bringing more feel of equality, more feeling of equality, self-respect, with more willingness to delay marriage, more willingness to delay marriage, and can also pursue careers, and can also pursue careers. Hence, this can be the first dent, D-E-N-T, this can be the first dent on forced and early marriages. On forced and early marriages. Now, one more change happened during the British era. There was various foreigners settling in India, and also there were various communities in India. So now many times the Britishers settling in India, they were marrying Indian women. Yes, they were marrying Indian women. That's why it gave rise to community that we know as Anglo-Indian. Okay, Anglo-Indian. So hence, this would have required a system what marrying what interfaith marriages. Okay, so next major change was the allowing of what interfaith marriages. So now, hence came into picture in 1872 Special Marriage Act, 1872. Note down a line. As many Britishers settled in India, as many Britishers settled in India, and they got Indian wives for themselves, and they got Indian wives for themselves. Hence, it required an act to support interfaith marriage. To support interfaith marriage. Now, for example, you can note down, for example, Anglo-Indian community. For example, Anglo-Indian community. So that means now this is the next change or the next change in the marriage system. Now interfaith marriage is allowed. Yes. So interfaith marriage allowed. Allowed. Yes. Interfaith marriage. So this was the next change in the sacrosanctity of the marriage system. So this allowed individuals of different religions to marry without converting to each other's religion. Now, further, another change was happening during the pre-independence period, during the colonial period, during the national movement. Now, with the coming of the national movement, whether the Gandhian movement or the revolutionaries, now they were also we have seen participation of women, encouraging the participation of women. That means so women were now coming outside there from the indoor life to outdoor life. They were also joining the mainstream. They were also becoming the campaigners. They were also becoming the social workers. They were also becoming the educators. So women participation in national movement also opened up. Women's march into mainstream. Yes, also opened up. You add on. Also opened up women's march into mainstream. Now, this was seen in the Gandhian movements also and the revolutionary movements. Revolutionary who believed in what? A certain degree of conflict directly with the Britishers. So Gandhian movement was a peaceful movement. Revolutionary movement were aggressive movements, including what? Indian National Army under Subhash Chandra Bose had female soldiers, yes, or female officers. Had female officers. So in a male bastion, which was completely a male-dominated system of what? Army. Yes. Now even the women were giving the advantage to enter. So that means gradually the women were entering in different streams of life. So different streams of life will open up what? Interaction with different males, and these males can be of different caste and different class communities, and definitely can lead to more chances of intercaste and interfaith marriages. Okay. So hence what was happening is women also opened up and mainstream through the national movement, Gandhian movements and revolutionary movement. Now hence female finding space everywhere. Even the liberal political leaders like what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he stated that I measure the progress of community by the degree of progress which women have achieved. So that means these type of thinking leaders, which is just one quote from what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, there were many such leaders who were promoting women participation in what? Different areas of activity. So naturally, this is going to break the traditional social barriers. So all these broke, you can note down, all these broke traditional social barriers. All these broke traditional social barriers and hence promoted intermingling. Which formed the base or the genesis. Is formed the base or genesis for future intercaste and interfaith marriages. Future intercaste or interfaith marriages. Interfaith marriages. Now, one more statement from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He stated that how to break the caste system. To break the caste system, two things are allowed: interdining and intermarriages. If these two things are being promoted, then the caste system will be or eliminated forever. So hence this were already taking shape with what mainstream of women in different activities. Further, across the world, what was taking shape before independence also, and in what late 50s and 60s, a concept of feminism was taking shape. So impact of feminism. It increased consciousness about women's rights. And hence, this concept of women's rights chances of marrying beyond caste and faith increased. And that happened across the world. That happened across the world. So chances of women marrying. So first wave of feminism was in 19th and early 20th century. Now, what was the first demand for the women is, now we know in various initial democracies, only men were allowed to vote. Now here the first wave of feminism was demand for right to vote for women. Now, when we see United States gave voting rights to women in 1920. The United States has been in existence since 1776. UK Parliament has been in existence for many centuries, but gave the voting right to women in only 1928. This was a result of what? First wave of feminist movement. The first wave of feminist movement was on the demand of women's suffrage, that is right to vote. So hence came various suffragette movement demanding for voting rights. And these were important milestones. That is, in US, women got voting rights in 1920 and UK 1928. Okay, does the voting right to women would have changed the functioning of the government? Yes, voting rights of women would have brought the women issues into the mainstream. Clear? That means education, demand for more economic rights, more jobs, and that means what will gradually happen? Opening of women in the society. And when more opening of women in society, definitely the traditional systems of patriarchal marriages will definitely be dented and will be opened. Clear? So that means this brought what? Power to women. Power to women to influence policy making. To influence policy making. Power to women to influence policy making. Now, further, the second wave of feminist movement, which was very prominent in what Europe and Americas in 1960s till 1980s. Okay. Now it focused on broader issues of equality, such as discrimination in workplace, education, reproductive rights, and sexual liberation. Okay. Now that means second wave was more aggressive now. First wave, second wave. And all these type of thinking also filtered into India also. So social reformers in India, women social workers, social reformers in India, okay, academics, all these were now coming into discussions. All these were now coming to discussions and even policy making of the country. And this found what? Voice in the constitution itself. So right from the beginning of the constitution, we talked about justice, equality, liberty, and fraternity for all. With the start of the first general elections, 1951-52, India was one of the first country to give voting rights from the day one. Okay, this was a result of what? Positive thinking, international thinking seeping in the minds of the constitution makers as well as the political leaders of that time. So hence, this was reflected in the post-independence India, the changes in the profile of women. Yes, Vaibhavi?
Sir, in yesterday's newspaper, I guess there was this text and context article which mentioned about how reservation of women, particularly in the political parties, have resulted in drastic representation of women in the legislative assemblies and in the parliaments of other countries. So, is it like how, like, in our country we have this law that we passed recently, the 106 amendment act for women's reservation. So do you think it's gonna help to increase the women's participation? Because the data that was showing in the newspaper, it showed that the countries which had this reservation sort of scenario, acts and laws in their country, had little very less impactful. They have made a very less impact in the whole thing what they have the it was not very consequential, the
Hmm.
it was not very impactful, in other words,
See,
if I would.
there are various ways of seeing this. First of all, what we agree is we need to increase the number of women in the legislatures. Clear? Now, until unless the numbers are increasing, so there will not be pressure on the males who dominate the decision making. First of all. Secondly, if the numbers are very, very less, okay, as we see nowadays, the numbers are very, very less, hardly 11%, 12% of what women parliamentarians or the women in the assemblies, if the number are hardly 10%, 11%. So definitely those women are also suppressed by the male power of 90%. And hence they are also forced to behave and go with the patriarchy. So hence it will not be impactful in making what decisions favorable for women development. So if the plan is to increase that to 33%, so 33% have got more visibility and more weight, yes. So first of all, before talking about and questioning the after effects of anything, first of all, we have to start with a change first. And then once the change has been started, 33% women are reaching there, then we will be finding the ways about improving the method of what utilizing that women power in the parliament. Okay, that is a secondary thing. Yes, that's not an initial thing. Initial thing is we have to increase the numbers. Okay, that has to be done. Now, for example, that's why what we are finding is then it requires what more supportive systems so that women become decision makers. Otherwise, when you see in Indian conditions now, as patriarchy is dominant, in panchayat there is a reservation of 33%. So certain panchayats we find sarpanch patis. The same types of thing can also happen in what parliament assembly also, but that is a initial thing that is going to happen because if we are applying the changes will be reaching its conclusion in terms of bringing the final change over a period of time because we cannot prevent change after a certain duration of time. So first of all, we have to start, and then finally that change will be improved over a period of time. Now see, if we talk about, let me give one example. We are seeing that the number of girls clearing the UPSC examination is regularly increasing now. Now, if I go back 40 years back, yes, then if you say something 40 years back to any person, the male, that girls will be outscoring the boys in UPSC, 40 years back, the people will be laughing. Yes, kabhi nahi ho sakta aise. Now, if the girls are what clearing UPSC in large numbers, that was an effort made towards girls' education after independence. Yes. So now the girls are reaping the benefits after 70 or 75 years. The change happens over a period of time. First of all, we have to plant the change first. Okay. I was very clear, Vaibhavi?
Yes, sir, it makes sense.
Okay, I make sense. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, the thing which you said was like really true. I mean, this is
Ah,
what we really need right now in the country
ah.
because the representation in the
See,
18th Lok Sabha
see, when
is
we talk about
not
the
very.
when we talk about your parents' generation or what, if I talk about my parents' generation or maybe my grandfather's generation, so they have been a generation of what more under domination of patriarchy. Yes. Now, who will be liberators? The liberators will be the new generation. Okay? So the people like you, when you were growing up, when you will be raising your own families, so you will be more liberated in dealing with your own children. Yes. So that you will see what more changes and drastic changes happening within the next 50 years. Okay, so that is going to happen. Okay, now, so second wave brought what more demand for women rights everywhere, more safety precautions everywhere. That's why our constitution were influenced by such type of what policy making from the day one, because all those changes were included in the constitution itself. So hence what happened post independence, the first thing is we gave voting rights to women right from the first general elections. So women got voting right from first general elections 1951-52. That means the women issues were the part of policy making right from day one. Right from day one. Right from day one. So that's why there was so much focus on what girl child education, even in the villages. Now, I will recall my mother was born in the year 1956. 1956, she was born. Now, when she started to study in the primary school, so for till the class 5th or till the class 8th, she got scholarship. Yes. Okay. That means no fees for the girls. That was an encouragement because that is part of now what policy making, because women were the voters. Now it's a responsibility of the men who dominate the government to now look differently from the female's perspective also. Okay. Now, so that means education. Now, women encouraged in education, employment, and that definitely brought exposure and intermingling with males of other caste and communities. That is bound to happen. When the women are going to work in offices, when the women are going to work somewhere else, when the women are reaching the higher education, definitely they will intermingling with the opposite sex, mainly males, and these males can be of what different caste and communities. So that would have definitely led to what attraction and love affairs, maybe marriages. That was the start of what maybe intercaste or interfaith marriages. And the same type of thing was also promoted through what Hindi movies or other language movies also. In all the movies, you will find the hero and the heroine, they were actually in love relationship. It does not matter which background they belong to. That was also fueled by, the change was also fueled by the movies in our country. So this is also fueled by movies in our country. And to support this, yes, to support this such type of intercaste marriages and interfaith marriages, yes, there was again a new Special Marriage Act of 1954. Now this is Post-Independence Act. So hence, why? Because right to marry a person's one choice is a fundamental right. Overall, marriage is an institution. Hence, what happened? Marriage and institution now become a contract from a sacrosanct thing. Now the marriage emerged as a contract because registration of marriage is required. So something which requires registration, that means it is now emerging as a contract. When something can be broken in the form of divorce, what can be broken? Contracts can be broken. So registration of anything is seen as a contract. Okay. Now breaking the contract, like divorce in marriage, is again is a sign of a contract. You can break the contract. And you can restart the contract with anyone. You can restart. Hence means remarriage is a common thing. Gradually became a common thing. Remarriage. So now that means the sacrosanct system has now become a contract system. Has now become a contract system, which can be across the faith also, which can be across the caste also, which can be dissolved also, which can be restarted also. Very clear?
Sir, but in Islam, marriage has always been a contract.
In Islam, yes, we are talking about Hindu marriage system. Here we are talking about. In Islam, it is always a contract. Yes. Okay, so that means registration contract, divorce contract, and what restarting the marriage is also a sign of a contract. Now, prominent new changes. What has been the new changes with the changing nature of society and the changing nature of requirements? Now, for example, the coming of the acceptance of single mothers. Acceptance of single mothers now. For example, I still remember when the for admissions, father's name is required. Okay. For getting a degree, father's name is required. Teachers complaining or writing a complaint note in a diary, papa se sign karwa ke leke aana. Okay. Means it's always father, 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 and father. Okay. Now, father is not a requirement. Yes. It's not a necessary requirement. So Supreme Court also directed that the name of the father may not be necessary for obtaining child's birth certificate. That means it can be unwed mother also, single mother also can get that. Passport and for school purposes. So that means it now brought acceptance to single mothers who can be unmarried also, who can be divorcee also, who can be widow also. Okay. So single mothers. So that means again the challenge for the stability of the marriage system is actually becoming more and more. It is now transforming itself with the requirements. Now, yesterday I showed you this line also with respect to the status of being single, the proudly saying that we are single. The Supreme Court ruling also that all women, including those not married, had equal rights to abortion also, and held as a recognition single women's right by the top court. That means bearing a child and also abortion is recognized even for the single women. So this clearly showing that we want to liberate the women. Now, next change happened with the coming of the acceptance of live-in relationship. Now, the Supreme Court held that living together as partners without getting married is not illegal or criminal offense. And this decision came in 2010. The Supreme Court of India in 2010 gave legal recognition to a live-in relationship in case of as Khushbu versus Kanyamal. Yes, Kanyamal case. So you can quote all these type of case laws, yes, or case in the examination when you write. So what are the changes we are seeing is Special Marriage Act, which is promoting intercaste and interfaith marriage. Yes, marriage emerging as a contract. Next change is single mothers are being accepted. Next change is live-in relationship is accepted. Yes, live-in relationship. Now this live-in relationship comes with protection also. So Protection of Domestic Violence Act. So Domestic Violence Act provides protection to women in live-in relationships who face domestic violence. So that means it is being provided a more what sanctity or acceptance from the perspective of creating its acceptance in the society. So it also being covered under the Protection of Domestic Violence Act. The Act defines a domestic relationship as one in which two persons live together in a shared households and are in relationship in the nature of marriage. Therefore, a woman in a live-in relationship can approach the court for protection under the Domestic Violence Act. So that means the Protection of Domestic Violence Act was added to live-in relationship. Even one more protection. In case of that live-in relationship ends in between or ends anytime, then there has to be a time frame which is actually required, which is decided by the court, after which time frame, if the live-in marriage ends, so the male partner in the marriage, what type of maintenance for the female that person will be providing will be decided by the court. So maintenance, again in 2015, the Supreme Court held that women who had been in a live-in relationship for a long time, though specific time period has been written here, so it will be depending upon the scrutiny of the court, entitled to maintenance from her partner after separation, even though live-in relationships are not recognized as marriages under Indian law. Yes. That means entitlement of maintenance will be there. Protection from domestic violence, entitlement of maintenance, all these are included to give more stability to live-in relationships. And stability in terms of recognition by the society. Now, live-in relationships, again, that will be happening, for example, earlier the marriages were forced on the children, they were growing up, because initially it was the marriage age was very less, and very less people were studying. But now more people are studying, they're working in different areas, they're working outside their cities or the hometowns. So definitely there are more chances of coming in contact with what opposite sex. Yes, there is definitely a more chances of what are love relations. Okay, now before entering into marriage, because marriage comes with enormous responsibility towards each other. Okay, now so hence many times the couple starts with what live-in relationships, maybe later deciding for a formal marriage. So that means now the time has come to give space. Now time has come to give more time. Now time has come to what actually decide on which partner suits you the best. Yes, that's why such type of changes are happening in the society now. So that's why the post-marriage system is now getting challenged again and again. Next comes what decriminalization of adultery. So this is in the case of Joseph versus Union of India, the case in which Supreme Court struck down the law relating to adultery. So it's no longer a criminal offense. No longer criminal offense. Now, for example, adultery, so punishment was only given to men, not to women earlier. So adultery punishment was to men. So men, so for example, a married man entering into a love affair with maybe a married woman besides his wife, or can be any unmarried girl or unmarried woman. So that will be treated as adultery, and the punishment goes to men. So because it was earlier considered a criminal offense. Yes. So that means that has been struck down. Yes. So this is not being seen as a criminal offense now. So it is now being converted from criminal offense to a civil offense. Yes. So in the civil offense, what can happen is the In case of adultery, the divorce can be raised in an issue that I do not want to live now with this person. Okay, that can be the reason. That can be the situation. So hence, Supreme Court opinion is that why it is no more a criminal offense. So what Supreme Court stated, a crime is something which is committed on the society as a whole, while adultery is more of a personal issue. More of a personal issue. So hence, adultery does not fit in the concept of crime, as that will otherwise invade the extreme privacy sphere of the marriage. Yes, that means you are poking into the households. Yes, poking into the bedrooms of the house of the people. Yes, so that goes against what most intimate privacy is. So that means it is no more criminal offense, but it can be a civil offense. It continues to be a civil wrong and can be a ground for divorce. So what happens after adultery is the decision of the couple now. What to do now? Should be left to the husband and wife to decide, as it is something which should only involve their personal discretion. So here the state or the court should not be entering in that. Yes.
Adultery was only punishable for men, sir.
So punishable for men only, adultery.
Also, not it could be struck down on Article 14, 15.
It can also be struck down in case of what issue of equality also. Okay. Now, second statement from the court was, a husband is not a master of his wife. So husband is not a master. So the judgment places reliance on the fact that women should not be considered as the property of their husbands or fathers for that matter anymore. For that matter anymore. Now, so what we are seeing, enormous changes happening very, very fast in Indian society for last 60, 70 or 75 years. Enormous changes happening in the concept of what the union of a couple. Yes, the various changes happening now. So now, another thing that happened was decriminalization of homosexuality. This is another change. So Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India. So in this, the Supreme Court decriminalized what homosexual activity. That means it gave rise to a concept of what same-sex live-in relationships. So this actually approved same-sex live-in relationships. So this now approved same-sex live-in relationship. Now see, why the same sex was denied. So the issue of what third gender, transgender were always there throughout the human history. Same sex attraction was also there throughout the human history, but it was not converted into an accepted live-in relationship in the past or accepted marriage in the past because it did not produce offspring. It did not lead to the legitimate transfer of the property. Now these concepts have emerged. Yes. Now even the heterosexual marriage, people may be deciding not to have a child. Okay, so child is not the guarantee of a marriage. Yes, because the parents may be deciding, couples may be deciding not to become parents. So hence the concept is now opening up. Okay, because the end of a relationship is not a child now. It's not compulsory. So decriminalizing homosexuality. So same-sex live-in relationships actually got approval by this striking down of Section 377. So the repealing of Section 377 and the resultant decriminalization of homosexuality is a significant step for the LGBTQIA+ community. Now, for your understanding, let's decode these letters. Yes. So L is for lesbian. That means the women having what a relationship with other women. Yes, means two women in relationship, lesbian. When I talk about gay, yes, so men relationship with a man. So B, we talk about bisexual. So bisexual is a person who is attracted to either sex. So attracted to both either sex, yes, bisexual. T is transsexual. So there are two types, trans men and trans women. Trans women. Now, what is the meaning of trans men and trans women now? Trans man is transitioning towards manly qualities. Trans man means transitioning towards manly quality. This means what? Trans man means born as a girl, means the sex assigned at birth is girl, but display the features, okay, the capabilities, okay, the inclinations of a male. Yes. So he's born as a girl, but show the traits of a male. So biologically born as a girl, sex assigned at birth is a girl, but show the traits of a male. So that becomes trans men. So first of all, Sai, any law can be misutilized. Even simple traffic rules or regulation are misutilized by n number of people on daily basis. That does not mean that we do not require rules and regulations. Okay, that is a problem of the individual who is violating a particular law. That should be dealt individually. Laws are being created for the benefit of the larger set of people, so that the weakest get the benefit. If that law is being misutilized by somebody greedy, somebody selfish, somebody wants to misutilize that power given to that person, that's the problem of that person. So person should be punished. Okay. So now, so I hope this is clear. Trans man is transitioning towards man, means born as a girl biologically, but have got traits of a male. Same goes here, trans women. So transitioning towards women. Yes. So born as a boy, so gender is male. Okay. And transition towards women or showing womanly qualities. And showing womanly qualities. Okay. Now, yes, Ravina, you have replied right. Sex is biological and gender is what how we behave or perform. Yes. Okay. Now, so lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, trans men, trans women. Now, Q is for cure. Cure is a term that's been used for strange, so which becomes derogatory here. But cure includes, this is an umbrella term which includes all lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual. This is a general term that is being used to define all these. Cure, which are actually not heterosexual, which can have either of these. So cure means strange. So LGBTQI. Now, what is the meaning of I? So I is intersex. I is intersex. So intersex means, so having what, both male and female organs. Yes. Intersex means having both male and female organs. Intersex. Male and female organs. And now asexual. Asexual means the person who does not have any feeling or sexual inclination towards anyone. Okay, means no sexual inclination. No sexual inclination. And what is plus now? Plus means it is open-ended, means more new things coming to our notice in terms of sexuality will be added. Yes. So this means it is kept open-ended. It is kept open-ended. Very clear, all these terms? Now, Ravina, you are doing PhD in this. Okay, so if you want to add on, something that will be beneficial for the class, you can add on. Okay, so now, so what we are finding is by decriminalizing what homosexuality, it has liberated the LGBTQI community, because now the people can live as per their choice of sexuality in the live-in relationship. They can live now. Now, further, now what was the recent take? Now the same-sex live-in relationship is approved, but now there's a demand for same-sex marriage status. Marriage status. Okay, a legal marriage status like that is there for heterosexual couples. Now that was at this moment denied. Yes. Okay, let's see why and how this can be what gained in future. So now the demand is same-sex relationship to be recognized as a civil union under Special Marriage Act. So now the LGBTQIA community was demanding that there should be a legal sanction in terms of a civil marriage for the same-sex couples. Okay. Now, so now, but the 5-judge constitution bench, so that they were expecting that the Special Marriage Act of 1954, which talks about interfaith, intercaste marriages, but mentions between men and women. So that which is demanding that there should be amendment in the act, it should not be mentioning men and women. It should be mentioning what any two people to marry. Any two people to marry. So it was demanding a correction of Special Marriage Act. So marriage should not be just mentioning men and women marriage, okay, but should be any two people. So expectation that the 5-judge constitution bench would give the Special Marriage Act a law that allows any two people to marry. That is a gender neutral interpretation of marriage to include people belonging to the same sex. But now, what was the judgment by 3 and 2? The judgment of the majority decision, that is the 3 judges stated that this should be discussed and taken up in the parliament. It's a responsibility of the parliament. Let the parliament take this up. Now, this can also be seen as a positive stand also, because the initial act, Special Marriage Act, also came from the parliament, and the parliament is bringing amendment itself. Parliament becomes the voice of the people because the parliamentarians are elected by the people. Clear? So when the parliament brings a such type of amendment, it is seen as the people's voice directly. Clear? So just note down line below this. Okay. As parliamentarians are elected by people. As parliamentarians are elected by people. And if this amendment comes through parliament, then it can have wider acceptability. Then it can have wider acceptability. Wider acceptability. Now, so what is the issue now? When the same-sex live-in relationship is approved, then why there's a demand for now legal recognition of marriage now? So what makes the legally married status different from live-in? Yes, let's see now. So why civil unions? Why there is demand for a registered marriage? Why? Because the marriage which is legally recognized can bring various benefits. First of all, it opens up inheritance rights. Now, for example, now assuming that if two people of the same sex are in relationship and the parents are against, what can happen? Parents can become angry and cannot give share in property. So that means the parents can deny sharing the property as a punishment for them. But once this is being legally recognized as a marriage, and once the person can claim that now, on the basis of sanctioned marriage, they can now claim the property or get the property. So it can open up inheritance rights. Okay. Now, next is now parental rights. They will getting various parental rights. Now, parental rights what? Now, if they are ultimately adopting a child, yes, so they will get adoption rights. So adoption rights will open up. Adoption rights, or they can also not simply adoption right, they can also, okay, artificial insemination. So one of the living partners who is a woman can give rise to, can give to birth, yes, of a child, artificial insemination. So that will be seen as what? Yes, a biological offspring. So that means parental rights will also be assigned. Yes, parental rights. Employment benefits to spouses. Now there are various organizations which hire both husband and wife. Yes, especially when we talk about boarding schools or education institutions. Okay, there are various facilities. For example, you talk about top schools in the country. Top schools in the country like Woodstock School in Missouri. Yes. Now they hire the couples, okay, as teachers, and for their children, they are offering free education. So that means when the people are recognized as couples, yes, so that means that open about additional benefits like what? Additional benefits of the workplace. Additional benefits of workplace. For example, both parents are employed by a company or an organizations, and then benefits given to the children, to their children. Now, joint parenting responsibility will rise. Now, right to abstain from testifying. This is a very important provision. Right to abstain from testifying against one's partner. Now, in case of married couples, yes, you cannot force a wife or a husband to testify in a crime against the spouse. Yes, it's not allowed. So, right to abstain against testifying, similar to the spousal privilege given under Section 122 of the Indian Evidence Act, or now Bharatiya Saksha Adhiniyam. You cannot force the spouse to give evidence against the other partner or the other legally wedded partner. Then it brings more social acceptance. So live-in relationship at this moment are not seen with respect in the society. But if the same-sex live-in relationship are entitled with marriage certificate and get what various benefits like what other heterosexual couples in marriage, then gradually the acceptance, gradually the respect will also rise. Okay. Now, asset transfers, okay, asset transfer, we see that various properties are being brought by male in the name of the women, yes, or the wife. So that attract what lesser taxes, okay. So that can be other benefits. And there are joint life insurance policies, joint family plans, okay. Even tourism companies offer joint family plans. Okay. Medical insurances are joint, okay, pensions, okay. So there can be various benefits which can open up for a legally wedded, even same-sex couples. In case of dispute, they can access to family courts also. Now, family courts came through Family Courts Act 1984. Now, objectives, conciliation to encourage amicable settlement of family disputes. That means same-sex couple will be able to access them. Judicial process to issue all family-related matters. Then all those issues which are linked with what? Marriage and divorce. So that means the family court's benefit can be taken. Even in case of child adoption. Okay. Now, this is a separate point. Here I am talking about access to family court. That means in order to solve the marriage disputes or the family disputes, okay, property disputes, they can go to family courts. Another issue that any other benefit for the same sex legally recognized marriage can be, now they can openly adopt a child. So child adoption, which comes under Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection Children Act, JJ Act. So JJ Act lays down the procedure for the adoption of orphaned, abandoned and surrendered children. Now, how this can be done? If the couple is willing, now any couple, heterosexual or maybe same sex, if their same sex marriage is legalized, now what is the requirement is they have to register online that they are willing to adopt a child through what? Child Adoption Resource Information and Guidance System. This is the portal. Yes, this is the portal. And finally, the approval is being given by Central Adoption Resource Authority, CARA. CARA is the authority linked with what? Child adoption. It scrutinizes the capability of the couple. scrutinizes and check it also provides monitoring evaluation once the child is being handed over, where it's properly taken care of, frequent visits, and then finally coming with the reports that yes, the child has finally accepted and has gelled well. So all those comes within CARA. So CARA is the apex body in India for the regulation and facilitation of adoptions. It operates under Ministry of Women and Child Development. Ministry of Women and Child Development, CARA. So CARA ensures that adoptions are conducted in a more transparent manner and child-centric manner. That's acceptable. Okay, benefit for children or adjustment of children is given the more importance rather than the parents willing to adopt. Now, besides this, there comes another thing called Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956. Yes, thank you, Bhumika. Yes, it works in the Hague Convention in cases of what? Inter-country adoption. Yes. Inter-country adoption. Now, there's another thing called Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act 1956. Hindu means, again, these Hindus, Buddhists, Jain, and Sikh. Now, for example, if you're belonging to any of these community, if you want to adopt a child from a family which is known to you, that means you can adopt a child. But these children should be belonging to these communities only. Hindu, Buddhist, Jains, and Sikh. If that person is known to you, that family is known to you, and if they are willing to give their child to you, so that means you can legally adopt. Now, hence, under HAMA, the adoption process is more straightforward and does not require the involvement of CARA. Does not require the involvement of CARA or the court. Now, there is also one more thing called becoming a guardian. Yes. That is Guardians and Wards Act 1890. Now, primarily used for guardianship, it is used for guardianship rather than full adoption. It is not treated adoption. It is about creating a legal guardian for that person, legal guardian. Not a legal parents who is adopting a child, but only a legal guardian. So primarily used for guardianship rather than full adoption. It's applicable for Muslims, Christians, Parsis, and Jews. So this does not grant the status of adopted child as the biological child, because the process involves only the appointment of a guardian, not the adoptive parents. So this is giving only guardianship. But HAMA and the juvenile justice is giving full adopted parent status. And the status of to the adopted child is a biological child. Yes. Now, but still, though, now the last closing point for this is although the Supreme Court has not given a green signal to the same-sex recognized civil marriage, but the Supreme Court has opened up a way. Yes, opened up a way. For example, now this has to be understood because this can be a little complex in understanding. Now, all eyes here, let's understand first what Supreme Court is saying, that transgender persons in heterosexual relationship have the right to marry under existing law. What is the meaning of this? So it states that if a transgender person is in a heterosexual relationship and wishes to marry their partner, such a marriage will be recognized. Yes. What does it mean? A transgender man marrying a cisgender woman. Let us understand this. This is a little complicated. This is approved. Yes. So what is it saying? A trans man can marry a cisgender woman. A cisgender women. So who's a trans man? So trans man biological sex is a female or a male? Trans man. Trans man biological sex is female. But this female is showing what? More manly qualities or manly traits. Manly traits. Is showing what? Man quality or manly traits. Now this this female who has got more manly qualities can marry a cisgender woman. Cisgender means a straight woman, means cisgender means born as female and yes also have the female traits. So means a female having the inclination towards manlyhood, a female having inclination towards manlyhood can marry a straight girl if both of them are ultimately compatible to each other. Very clear? So actually what we are seeing is here the sex is still female. Here the sex is still female. Actually what we are approving is same sex marriage only. Orientation is different for one female. Yes, orientation is different. But actually we are approving same sex union. I hope it's very clear. Okay. So if I again repeat, a trans man can marry a cisgender woman. So trans man is sex female, orientation male. Cisgender means sex female, orientation female. So what does this mean? A female having a male orientation can marry a female having a female orientation if both of them feel compatible with each other. So actually what in terms of sex, okay, we are saying that we are approving a same sex relationship. Orientation is different of one female here. So this step, so that means this is a way forward now. That means when this is being allowed, so the next step will be definitely approving it in terms of what legally acceptance of marriage for same sex. So this has been approved. Very clear? So this was the concept of marriage and all the issues that we have done so far. Let's see the question. Yes, the question that was asked by UPSC. The question that was asked by UPSC was this: 2023. Do you think marriage as a sacrament is losing its value in modern India? So this came after the Supreme Court judgment on what same-sex marriage. Clear? So how you are going to write this question? You are going to write this question first of all initially. So is losing initially you have to mention how it emerged as an institution of social order. That was a requirement. Later, the features of patriarchal domination emerged as a system of what patriarchal institution. So you mentioned about features of patriarchy, and that features of patriarchy was considered sacrosanct. Now you mentioned about beginning of changes. Again, you mentioned about 19th century changes. Okay. Then you talk about 20th century changes like the national movement changes, feminism changes, and the coming of the constitutional changes. That is bifurcated into pre-independence and post-independence. And post-independence changes, you will be mentioning about Special Marriage Act. You will be mentioning about single mother approval. Okay, same-sex relationship, decriminalization homosexuality, decriminalization of adultery. Okay, so that means you have to mention about all this. Hence, you can show how it has changed over a period of time. It was a requirement of that for something different in the past. Now the changes is part of the changing dynamics and the aspirations of the society, which is evolving itself every time. Will you be able to write 200 words on this? And even you can write, if this would have been an essay, you can also write a full essay also now. Okay. So.
But sir, what will be the conclusion?
Conclusion. So you have to decide on the conclusion and submit. Okay, I have given you a hint. So I will giving this question in the assignment. Yes. I have given this question.
Ideally, what should be the conclusion?
There's no ideal conclusion. Ideal conclusion is always futuristic. Now, when we are seeing so many changes in the society in terms of marriage and institutions, okay, and then it is also talking about the freedom to the people in choosing their life partners. Life partners can be of either sex. Okay, this clearly shows that the marriage and institution is evolving with the evolving nature of time. Yes, and this is going to evolve further. Yes, we are going to end there, evolve further, because we cannot now go back. Yes, because the evolution already taken place.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So tomorrow the assignments will be coming. So assignment, what should be the composition? Should I give 3 GS questions and 2 essays, or 4 GS questions, 1 essay? I hope I think 4 GS questions, 1 essay.
4+1, yes.
4+1. So we'll maintaining that order, 4+1. Okay. So that with each and every
Sir,
coverage will be. Yes, Vaibhavi, you can
Sir, I
talk.
have a request, sir.
Yes. Partha.
Wonderful. Sir, can we have one class for SDG goals and sub-goals to be understood? It's very difficult to find it on internet, and at any other place, it's not very holistically covered. Everybody says that, or a handout, if it is given, that would also serve the purpose. Sir.
Okay, no, see, handout becomes like a note. Maybe a class is better thing. Yes.
Yes,
So
sir, just
along with the class can be the handout as I usually give. Hai na?
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because on internet,
Do you all of you agree with what he is recommending? Should I explain SDGs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can we keep that class on Monday as SDG class?
yes, sir. For me,
Because it's a part of what social justice, economic justice. Okay. It's a part of that. So okay. So I have taken this into consideration. Let's do a SDG class on Monday because it's part of social justice, economic justice. Okay. Yes.
Sir,
Yes,
sir, I have a question, sir. Regarding with like it's related to that only, the marriage thing. So, what is the difference between traditions and customs, and which is like difficult to break, a tradition or a custom?
See, tradition give rise to various customs. No. What is a tradition? Okay, so tradition is basically a marriage between men and women is a tradition. But that how that marriage is to be conducted, that differs between community to community. Rituals can be different. Okay, that means so traditions give rise to different customs which can be changing as per the community. But tradition is marriage between men and women. That is a tradition. So using the rituals or maybe we know the marriage rituals are different across the length and breadth of this country. So that can be the custom for that particular community. Though they are following a tradition of what men marrying a woman. That is a tradition. Clear?
So, sir, in that logic, we can say that custom is like easier to break than a tradition, right?
No, see, all we are not going to say that we never use the term of breaking anything. Yes, always use the term evolution. Yes, change,
Modification.
modification. Okay, we are not supposed to break anything. We are supposed to evolve everything. Yeah. So never use a term called breaking. You know?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So any more queries or everything is very clear? I hope we have covered the entire concept of marriage, and I hope you like that. Yes, in terms of understanding. Yes, Gloria. So please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sir, my friends used to tell me that dowry is calculated through stamp. How is dowry calculated? Because this is something new to me. It's different from my society. We don't have dowry. We don't have casteism. We don't have discrimination, gender discrimination, nothing. It's just in our state, it's just the civilians and then the head, state government. So this is quite new to me. So can you please tell me that?
You are saying dowry is what?
So my friends used to tell me that dowry is calculated through a stamp. So what is that stamp?
Can you type? Can you spell the word? Or you just type it out? Just type it out in the chat. Dowry is a stamp. Yes, stamp is a status symbol. Yes, is a status symbol. For example, we know for example, the grooms becoming IAS officers. Yes, especially in UP, Bihar, they have got now the stamp is a status. Okay, that this groom can be bought at what 4 crore rupees, 5 crore rupees. So that is a stamp. That is the tag of price that has been put on the groom now. Yes, that is called the tagging of the groom as per the status that person has achieved in the society economically or maybe positionally. So that is a status symbol. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sir,
Okay.
we don't have this, so I don't. Thank
Yes,
you,
I
sir.
know. Yes, I know. Yes, sir. So, but now see, many that used to be a very dowry is still prevalent, but still it has the prevalence rate has declined. Yes, prevalence rate has declined. Now, because we are dealing with a society which is very, very complex, have got various thinking thinking people mindsets. And we know when something has been framed for multiple of centuries, cannot be eradicated in just 1 century or 75, 80 years. Yes. So here, change is bound to happen, and change is already happening. More evolved people, definitely I expect that the boys here who are clearing the examination may not be demanding dowry. That's the only thing that that I will be expecting. Yes, I hope, Partha, am I right? Okay. So let's conclude the class and let's keep a class. Let's keep a class on SDG on Monday. Yes, SDG on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.